Howdy, y'all. Welcome to the Beverly Hillbillies Facts and Trivia. Y'all kick off your shoes and you set a spell, all right? Now here's your host for the show, the old Kentucky boy himself, Mr. Bob Snap.
Hi guys, welcome to the Beverly Hillbillies Facts and Trivia. Appreciate you being here. Today's video, I was going to go over some Granny's recipes, but after yesterday's viewership kind of weren't into Granny's kitchen menu, so I'm going to let that slide to the side unless I hear different, that somebody actually wants to see them. So instead, I'm going to be talking about kind of the birth of the Beverly Hillbillies and how people thought that it was a remake or a copy of other shows, but it wasn't. Let's take a look. This was not a mere rehash of filmdom's Ma and Paul Kettle, nor was it a takeoff of ABC's The Real McCoys. For Paul Henning, the creator of the Beverly Hillbillies, and its writer, producer, and the driving energy force that fueled it for 9 years on television, it was an idea that struck him while vacationing across the country with his mother-in-law. Henning's wife, Ruth, hated long auto excursions. He explained, after 5 years of writing and producing The Bob Cummings Show in 1959, I took this 15,000-mile motor trip to historical sites in the United States. Driving relaxes me. After leaving Lincoln's cabin in Kentucky, we drove along a 2-lane highway facing the approaching cars at a closure rate of about 130 miles an hour. I wondered aloud what reaction Abraham Lincoln might have had if he were transplanted from the 19th century and suddenly found himself seated in the car with us. That idea kind of stayed with me. I wondered how, without too much magic, such a thing could be accomplished. I subsequently read a little bit about someone trying to build a road through a remote section of the Ozark Mountains, and the people actually would try and stop the building of the road. They didn't want to have access. Part of that, I'm sure, was that a lot of them made their lives living moonshining, and they didn't want foreigners, as they called them, coming into the remote places. I avoided television for a while and wrote a couple of movies with Stanley Shapiro at Universal in 60 and 61. During those 2 years, I used to get regular phone calls from Al Simon urging me to create another TV show. He had been associated with me on The Bob Cummings Show. Al was the president of Filmways. He really lured me away from writing movies over at Universal, and he convinced me to come up with a concept for television. He heard I liked hillbilly humor and offered to buy the TV rights from Ma and Paul Kettle, but I said no. I'm going to do a hillbilly program. I'm going to do my own, and I'm going to create it myself. Having put his thoughts on paper and finally made the decision to do something. And after that, things moved quickly with the notion that the comic strips are the most read part of the newspaper. He created characters that were very much like those in the cartoons, only they would be animated in live form. Days later, he had a luncheon appointment that would change his life forever. Henning was about to strike oil himself. Henning sat at his booth at the Brown Derby restaurant with Al Simon, Filmway Television president, and Mark Ranzanoff, its board chairman. Henning explained his vision to them. He had his notebook with him and excitedly thumbed through his pages as he acted out the plot and described those fish out of water. These hillbillies strike oil and move to a sophisticated urban center, which I first imagined to be New York City, but then I got to thinking of the cost of filming in New York, and it wouldn't have worked. Simon and Ranzanoff looked at each other with anticipation and allowed Henning to continue. Henning explained the story, which he based on a few character sketches from his notebook, including an abundant list of show ideas that he had already jotted down. He also pointed out this was not to be mistaken with Tobacco Road, which had been seen and enjoyed on stage earlier years. Tobacco Road is as funny as it can be, he told them, but you wouldn't want to see it every week. Poverty is depressing. By the end of the lunch, the group had a handshake deal. Ranzanoff immediately promised $100,000 of the company's money to produce the pilot. He was that sure of the show and of its creator's talent. The pilot film had funding, but the series had yet to be sold to the network, which also required a sponsor. Simon Ranzanoff took the idea and ran. Simon was the genius of television who had developed Three-camera filming for a sitcom, long before Desi Arnaz took the credit. Simon explains why he agreed to this corn-fed comedy so readily. To me, I thought automatically it was going to be the best thing to hit television in a long, long while. There was no question in my mind about it. There you go. $100,000 over lunch. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Please don't forget about classic TV facts and trivia, classic rock and country music facts and trivia. You don't know where to check them out. Have a great day. God bless. See you on Monday, and I'll be praying for you.